Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Greenius. In part 1 of my conversation with Amy Meek, we talked about how everything started, from a family road trip to co-founding Kids Against Plastic at such a young age. In this episode, we go deeper into what that journey has become over the years. We talk about campaigns like Cap Tat, which is challenging plastic waste in children's magazines, and the Cap Club, where children like us are actually leading their own campaigns and creating real change all over the world. It's also going to be super exciting to understand what it feels like to speak in places like the UK Parliament, the United Nations, and TEDx stages at such a young age, and how Amy has turned her ideas into books that inspire other young people like her. And one of my favorite parts of this whole conversation is hearing what it's like to build something with her very own sister. So let's get into part 2 of my conversation with Amy Meek. And now we're going to go on the CAP Club, which is where you meet all these amazing children. And it has 280 members across the world, I believe. You've built this whole community of young people running their own environmental campaigns with their own ideas, their own leadership, and their own energy. Why was it so important to you that kids actually ran this and didn't just participate?
I think it's really important because, as you said already, it's really important to us that Kids Against Plastic isn't just me and my sister, especially as I'm in my 20s now. I'm no longer a kid, and that's really sad to say. And actually, the power of what we do through Kids Against Plastic is to put young people and kids at the centre of what we do and really give them a platform and a spotlight to make a difference on what they believe in. It's not about what me and Ella care about. It's about helping these young people really be the leaders of change in their communities and beyond. And that's why the Kids Against Plastic Club is such a hugely important part of it for us, because we want to try and help as many young people feel like they have this network and this support to start to explore the issues that they want to make a difference on, no matter what their age is. And so we've got a real range of kids through the club. We've got sort of from 5 years old up to 18, 19, and we have weekly meetings as part of it where members from around the world come together on a 45-minute Zoom meeting and we talk about these issues. We have activities and games run by members, and we really try and make them issues that feel empowering to do something about, but also not scary, and ones that are just a form of anxiety are actually quite empowering ways to start making a difference and actually explore them in ways that aren't just doom and gloom and aren't just headlines. And so that's a really important part of it. And you know, we've mentioned the CapTat campaign as one of the campaigns, but it's not just that one. We also have a couple of other campaigns led by our youth members. We've got one that was led by a 12-year-old called Ali in Spain, which is around picking up 1 million pieces of plastic. And then we've also had another one which is around raising awareness of the concerns of plastic chewing gum and how that can lead to microplastic exposure in young people. We've been working with a UK plant-based gum company called Nude on that, and putting Kids Against Plastic Club members front and centre of that campaign on billboards and on adverts and on kind of news features in the UK. So it's really important to us to give as many young people as possible the support that we had when we first started and feel like they can be the next ones leading their own campaigns or charities and making a difference.
Thank you so much. And let's fly back to Ali, who's in Spain, with the 1 million pickup campaign, which is exactly what it sounds like. Who came up with that, and how far along are you? How well has it been going?
That entirely came from Ali and her family. Ali is absolutely incredible. She's so full of energy. She's so passionate about these issues, and she's got some amazing parents to support her with the work that she does. And we worked with her and on this campaign to, essentially it's exactly as it sounds like, pick up and log 1 million pieces of plastic litter. But what Ali is very keen to say, and I think is really important, is that this 1 million litter pick isn't just about the amount of litter we're picking up. It's also not something that Ali is doing entirely herself. The point of it is that everyone around the world, as part of Kids Against Plastic and beyond, will get involved and log their own litter picks to add towards this total. We've got a litter logging app that we use through the charity, which we developed with a mapping agency called Esri, which we used for this. It's not just about that total, because that total is a fraction of the amount of litter that's going into our environment each year. It's really about raising awareness of the impact of the plastic that we consume on the environment and starting to make a difference towards that issue by raising awareness through the kind of eye-catching total that we're aiming towards as part of the campaign. And that actually, Ali wanted us to try and do that, reach that total in 1 year, and unfortunately that didn't quite happen, but it was in about a year and a half that we actually got to the 1 million total, and I think we're now on 1.3 million pieces of plastic. Wow. Which have been collected and logged as part of this app, which is amazing to see, and I think really showcases the power of Ali leading this campaign and actually showing that if she, as a young person just litter picking in her local area, can make a difference towards this, then anyone around the world can be part of this bigger movement to try and raise awareness of the impact of plastic on our planet.
Thank you so much. And I think it was less about the actual number, but more about the awareness that sort of came with it, the fact that everybody really understood it. Now I have to take a moment here, because you have spoken on all 3 UK parliaments, at the United Nations in Geneva, and you've done 2 TEDx talks. And when you started this, you were just under my age. I just want to sit with that for a second. That's crazy. Congratulations. Your TEDx Exeter talk was in 2018, when you were around 15, and that talk has been viewed tens of thousands of times. Looking back on it now, was there anything you wish you said differently or wish you'd added?
Wow, that's a brilliant question. And I think that there's obviously things that have changed since 2018 when we did that presentation.
Yeah.
But I think the really important part of giving any presentation, such as a TED Talk as an example, a TEDx talk, is it's really an encapsulation of the message that we had at that moment and the power in particular in that talk of us being so young. I think we were like 14 and 12 years old when we did it, and obviously the goals of Kids Against Plastic have changed slightly still then, since then. We're obviously different ages, we've grown up a lot since then, but I think the really important part of that message is one that stands true today, which is the idea of, I think Ella starts the talk by saying, we may just be kids, but listen up. And I can't really say that anymore, but I still completely agree with that message and what we're trying to say through that talk, which is that we were so young when we were doing it and we hadn't achieved as much as other people doing TEDx talks alongside us. But the message that we were spreading of actually listening to the young people in your lives and empowering them to make a difference is super important and something that we're still encouraging today. And actually the fact that we did that back in 2018, and because we had that support and because we were listened to, we're now still doing it in 2026. And so I think that's a really important follow-up to that talk, is that it's still something that's going strong today. And even if we're not the young people saying listen up anymore, there are so many amazing kids as part of the charity who are.
Thank you so much. And that's really amazing, the fact that you're able to make such a big impact. And this sort of led on to you being on a much bigger stage, which was at the UN in Geneva at the Youth Summit. I want to ask you something that I think about a lot. When you speak to rooms full of professional adults who have a lot of power, people like politicians, diplomats, business leaders, world leaders, do you feel heard, like truly heard? Or does it feel sometimes like people are applauding without actually changing anything?
I think that it can go either way, and it completely depends on the situation and why you're there. And it's very easy for people to say empty words and come up and go, oh, that was a brilliant presentation. I loved hearing what you had to say. It's so important that we listen to young people on these issues and then not have any follow-up from that and not really have the action behind the words that really makes a difference on these issues. And that's why I think when we go to these sort of situations, that's something we're very aware of, and that's why they're the sort of platforms where you can't hold back in your message. And what we always try to do through these kind of presentations is also make people think about the impact that their own lives have on this issue. And even if they're like a CEO of a business that is starting to do something about plastic or about climate change and, you know, meeting the bare minimum requirements of what they need to do around this issue, how can we make them look at the young people in their lives? It might be that they have kids, it might be they have grandkids. How can we really help to make them listen to the young people in their lives to make a difference on this issue as well? Because there's some really amazing statistics out there of actually the amount of CEOs of major companies who were actually inspired to do something about climate change because their kids spoke to them about it. And that's really impactful. That's probably more impactful than us being on a stage telling them something that they might have heard already. It's how can we try to appeal to the parts of them that connect to family and the things we really care about. And so it's really hard to quantify the impact that it necessarily has standing on a stage like that, but that's why we also try and use those opportunities as ways to spotlight different voices and try and invite different young people part of Kids Against Plastic to join us for presentations like that. And I had Ali, who we've already spoken about, joined me in a presentation in Barcelona at the World Retail Forum a couple of years ago, and World Retail Congress. And so she was so young at that age, and all anyone could speak about after that presentation was her and her message, and the fact that she was so incredible, standing on a really daunting stage in front of people who are leaders of businesses around the world, and was still confident enough to deliver her message and what she cared about. And so also bringing those different voices and those different young people to be part of those conversations is really important.
Thank you so much. It's really the care that's pushing everyone forward at this point. You spoke a little bit about Be Plastic Clever and Be Climate Clever, which ended up being the book, and now you're an author, which is fabulous, of 2 books. What are the results that you've seen after those books? Have you seen anybody come to you being like, oh, I read your book, it was great? What have you actually seen? What's the impact that's made?
Yeah, the books have been used in a range of ways, really, which was never something we imagined when we wrote them. It was super cool to get the opportunity to write a couple of books around this and to really encapsulate the message of Kids Against Plastic into them, and through how we communicate these issues. And we've had a lot of schools use the books. Obviously, the Plastic Clever Schools initiative is this similar name to Be Plastic Clever, and so we try and help schools use the book as a resource in the classroom to engage students and teach them about these issues, but also start to find ways that they can take action in the school community. So that's been really cool to see. And then we've also actually had a few members of the Kids Against Plastic Club join through seeing the book. We had one member join in Australia who saw it in her library a couple of years ago and is now still a huge part of the charity and is part of our key development team and is leading presentations and activities on the meetings that we have with the club. And so it's amazing to see the impact that just kind of one small book could have far beyond what we imagined. And we never wrote it intending it to be this like bestseller that would kind of be found all around the world, but actually just to see the fact that some young people have found it and used it for making a difference themselves, but also that bringing them into the charity is just the best thing we could ever have imagined.
Yeah, thank you. And you've, now let's focus on what's happening right now in your life and what's going to come next. You said something that I've been thinking about a lot. When you started CAP in 2016, plastic pollution wasn't being talked about very much at all. It was kind of this thought, but now it's everywhere. What did that shift feel like for you? From campaigning about something that may have been small and potentially insignificant in the minds of people in, say, 2016, to now being 10 years later, a decade forward in 2026, when it's potentially one of the most talked about issues ever?
I think it's a really interesting shift to have seen, especially alongside other communication around other environmental issues, but also a really good one, because we used to have to start a lot of our presentations and outreach in 2016 by going, you might have heard about this issue, but this is plastic pollution. This is the impact it's having. These are some photos of it being found around the world and impacting animals and communities. And we don't really have to do that anymore. You say to someone that we're making a difference and campaigning against plastic pollution, and they've probably seen a lot of the footage already. And so it's quite nice to not have to focus just on the what of the issue is, but actually really dive into the how we can make a difference and really make that the focus of the outreach that we do, which is super cool to see. But it's also been interesting to see how that translates to other environmental issues, because I feel like we've also seen loads of communication and awareness around climate change over the last few years, but I think we've not necessarily seen the same kind of action focus come from it. I think climate change can still feel like quite a disconnected issue from our lives, and one that we feel like we can make a difference on, and also one that we've seen be quite politicized in a way that we haven't with plastic pollution. And so a lot of what we also do is try to say we can't view all of these issues happening in the world as independent things. Plastic pollution is incredibly linked to social issues, it's incredibly linked to climate change, and is one of the things that might actually be feeding the climate crisis even more in coming decades. So how can we, even if we're not telling people what plastic pollution is anymore, how can we try to help people link it into these other issues happening in the world and feel like they can start to do something about that, even if it is through starting with plastic?
Thank you so much. And the cherry on top of this wonderful, wonderful episode, I'm going to ask you, you started this when you were 12 and your sister was 10, which I keep coming back to because it's such an amazing thing. If anybody around that age, or even older, or even younger, wherever they are, whatever age and stage, because there really is no wrong time to start, and they asked you, I want to do something, I want to make an impact, I want to take my first little step, what would you say? And what would be the best way for them to do it?
I think that the main thing to focus on if you're a young person who wants to make a difference on this issue is, firstly, find what your passion is, because it's not always going to be easy to make a difference on something you believe in, but if it's something that you're passionate about and something you really care about, then it's something that becomes such a big part of your life in a good way. I feel like it can't feel like as much of a chore or something that's as easy to give up on if it's something that you're really connected to. So find that issue that is one that you care about and you want to really drive change on, and stick with that. And then I also think a really big part of it is we sometimes view making a difference or campaigning or activism as this one size fits all approach, and like to be an environmental campaigner you have to go and do protests, or you have to be a writer, or you have to make a difference in a way that is what we often see. But actually a really important part of activism and making a difference is everyone having their own strengths and their own voices and their own skills to bring to this issue. If you want to be someone who protests, amazing, make that your method of impact. If you want to be a writer, do that, but don't feel like that has to be the way that you make a difference. If you're someone who is really creative, then use your art skills to communicate this issue. If you're someone who's an amazing communicator like you are, then do a podcast and make that your method of doing something. So I feel like it's really important to fit your change making into your life and what you like and what you enjoy, and really use that as your method of change, as opposed to trying to change how you are to fit with this idea of what we see a change maker as. And I think the last thing I will say is it's really important to also find your community, because I was really lucky that I have had my sister throughout this. We've got this amazing club as part of Kids Against Plastic. We've worked with incredible people over the years through our charity. We absolutely couldn't do it alone, and you also shouldn't do it alone, because if you feel like you're working as one person on this issue and you're kind of fighting an uphill battle, you're never going to kind of have that motivation to continue. And if you have people around you who support you and motivate you and actually inspire you back, then that is such an important way to actually keep longevity to what you do and make sure that maybe it's something you still do 10 years down the line like we do.
Thank you so much. That's so nice. And it's true that it's kind of the care that's really pushing you forward, because, everything's better when you're having fun doing it. Now we're going to finish off with maybe my favorite part, and that's the rapid fire. So nothing long, but everything short, snappy, and the first thing that comes to mind. Let's get straight into it. What's one plastic swap that's the most important in your opinion?
I think the most important plastic swap is the one that you can continue to do. So if it's a water bottle at school, make that your plastic swap.
Great, thank you. Which of the big four is most annoying for you?
This is a really tricky question to answer quick fire. I think the most annoying one for me in the UK is plastic bags, because we have a tax on them now. They're more expensive than carrying a reusable one. It's quite an easy fix to do in your life.
Great. What's a company or brand that you think is genuinely doing brilliant things on plastic? Give them a shout out.
I think there's one in the UK called Lush, which is a really good example. They do loads of kind of products free from any packaging. They have a community fund where they fund amazing initiatives on environmental issues. So I would give them a shout out.
Thank you. What's the wildest thing someone has said to you when picking up trash?
The wildest thing that's happened when we've been list picking is someone came and gave us mangoes, fresh mangoes on the roadside, which was
Wow.
the best thing to ever happen when list picking. It hasn't happened again, but I will keep that as a highlight.
Thank you. Oceans or rivers, which plastic pollution crisis keeps you up at night more?
I think rivers, because the vast majority of ocean plastic pollution actually comes from inland sources through rivers. So if we can cut the plastic that's coming into the ocean from there, then that could make a big difference.
Great. What's a plastic item in your home that you're embarrassed still exists?
I would say just plastic packaging on fruit and veg items that you can't get loose. We try as much as possible to get things in reusable bags or in paper bags, but there are some items you can't buy that don't come wrapped in plastic, and so that's a real bugbear for us.
True. And last one, finish this sentence. Young people don't need to wait because...
If we wait too long, then it's going to be too late.
Thank you so much. Amy, I came into this episode knowing I admire you, but now I'm leaving. More than that, I'm genuinely inspired. And that's not me being polite, that is me being honest, which is very fitting for the conversation about telling the truth about plastic. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me and for being an amazing interviewer as well.
Thank you so much. Okay, well, that's great. Thank you once again. That was amazing. Wow.
No, that was great. And your questions were really good. There's some of them I've literally never been asked before ever. So there was some really, amazing job.
That's great. Thank you. So good to hear that you enjoyed it. Thank you so much. Well, I hope you have a great day ahead.
Thank you so much. You too. It's great to chat.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a great day.
You too.
Amy, thank you so much for this conversation. I feel like what started as a really simple road trip has somehow turned into a global movement, which is quite the level up. Also, I have to say, your energy is unstoppable. Campaigns, books, speeches at the UN, and you still make it sound like anyone can start, which is probably the most impressive part. What I'm taking away from this is that making a difference doesn't have to be perfect or huge from the very beginning. It can start with noticing something, asking a question, and just deciding to take care a little more than everyone else around you. And somehow, that can grow into something much, much bigger. Thank you for reminding us that being young is not a limitation, it's actually a pretty good place to start. To everyone listening, thank you for being part of this conversation on the Greenius. Cheerio, and catch you on the green side!